everybody, happy Thursday. I hope you're doing great. Today we're going to be working with the book as well, but first let's start with some ranging.
It's a beautiful clear night outside, and clear nights are a great time to look up at the stars. And right now, we're looking at a bright spot in the sky that looks like a star, but it's not a star at all. It's a planet. The planet Saturn. Wow, I can tell it's Saturn because of those rings around its middle. Our telescope isn't strong enough to let us see Saturn very closely, but scientists who study space, called astronomers, have tools that they can use to take some really awesome pictures of this planet. Like this one. Nice, right? And big. Saturn is much bigger than Earth. How much bigger? Well, if Saturn were hollow in the middle, like an enormous ball, you'd be able to fit more than 700 Earths inside it. Saturn is one of the 8 planets in our solar system. Counting outward from the sun, it's number 6. It's one of the gas giants, a huge planet made mostly of gas. And like all of the planets, Saturn moves around the sun in a path that's kind of like an oval. This path is called an orbit. But not all orbits go around the sun. Things can orbit planets too, including Earth, like our very own moon. The one you might say goodnight to. It travels in an orbit around the Earth. But check this out. Saturn has 62 moons. Each one takes its own path, its own orbit around the planet. And you know what else moves in an orbit around Saturn? Those awesome rings. Let's look at Saturn's rings a little more closely. Scientists think that there are 7 major rings. Each one is named after a letter of the alphabet: A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. The rings may look solid, kind of like a hula hoop, but each one is actually made of lots of different pieces of rock and ice. Some of these pieces are as small as a speck of dust, and some are as big as houses, and even small mountains. And when we see a picture of Saturn, the rings look like they're standing still, but they're not. They're definitely on the move. Each of the pieces that makes up the rings moves around Saturn in an orbit. So how did the rings get there? Well, no one is totally sure, but astronomers have some good ideas. One idea is that the rings might have to do with Saturn's moons. Since Saturn is so big and has so many moons, some scientists think that maybe a long time ago it had even more. And it's possible that some of these moons broke apart, maybe because they were hit by other objects flying by, like asteroids or comets. And then, after those big collisions, all of that dust and rock and ice that was left behind stayed in orbit around Saturn and became its famous rings. But Saturn's rings are always changing. Since the chunks of rock and ice are moving as they orbit Saturn, they sometimes smash into each other and break apart. That means there's still lots to see and lots to learn about them. Thanks to Miss King's class at Truman Elementary in La Quinta, California for asking this stellar question. And thank you for joining us on SciShow Kids. Do you have a question about space or animals or anything else? Get help from a grown-up and let us know in the comments below, or send us an email at kids@thescishow.com, and we'll see you next time.
Exploring space. Before we start with today's activities, let's review last class video. Here are pages 30 and 31 from your student's book. Remember that we talked about the reading strategy, identifying the main idea and details. We read this text about stories about the stars. The main idea is what a text is about. The details support the main idea and add extra information. So, do you remember that the main idea from this text was that many cultures have old stories about the stars? Some of these cultures were the Zulu and the Vele from Africa, the Paiute from North America, and the Turco-Tatar from Central Asia. We also read about this text, Exploring Space. This text was about our planet, Earth, about the solar system, about spacecrafts, and it was about the exploration when it began. Remember that Russia launched the first satellite. They also sent a dog, Laika. Yuri Gagarin was the first person in space. And Neil Armstrong was the first person to walk on the moon. Finally, in the 2000s, the International Space Station went into orbit with a team of astronauts living on board. This is super interesting. So, these are some words we talked about last class. The solar system, the planet, spacecraft, launch, satellite, astronaut, and surface. We also talked about Cassini, the first mission to orbit the planet Saturn. Do you like planet Saturn? I personally think it's beautiful. Okay, so these are today's activities. First, you will watch the video again. Then you will read a text Exploring Space from page 32. You will answer the activities from your student's book, page 33. And finally, you will send your activities answered to my mail or through the platform, okay? Remember that this is my email. Now let me show you pages 32 and 33 from your student's book. Here they are. So take a look to the text. What do you think this text is about? Judging by the pictures, I believe we are going to talk about a planet. Can you recognize which planet? I can also see a kind of spacecraft here. So let's check vocabulary for today's class. Land. This land is so green and beautiful. Land is the surface of the earth that is not covered by water. Atmosphere. The atmosphere is the mixture of gases around the Earth. The Earth's atmosphere has different layers. Can you see them? On board, as part of a group or team, especially for a special purpose. The astronauts travel on board of the spacecraft. Orbit, the curved path through which objects in space move around a planet or star. The orbits of planets are elliptical. Can you see the shape? Okay, so here is Student's Book, page 32. We are going to be checking out this text. So let's start with the first one. Saturn's moons. More than 50 moons orbit Saturn. Cassini explored many of Saturn's moons and sent fascinating information back to Earth. It sent out a probe, a special instrument that landed on Titan, Saturn's largest moon. This was the first landing on a moon in the outer solar system. Photos show that Titan has rivers, lakes, and seas. But these are not made of water. They are made of liquid methane. On another moon, called Enceladus, scientists learned that big jets of water and ice shoot up into its atmosphere. Enceladus could have the right conditions for life because under its icy surface, there is salt water like our oceans. Salty waters help life take form. This is a photo taken by Cassini of Saturn's North Pole. Now let's continue with the next part of the text. The planet Saturn. Cassini also made new discoveries about Saturn and its amazing rings. The rings around Saturn are not solid. They are made of moving ice particles. Cassini took awesome close-up photos of parts of the planet that scientists have never seen before, like its northern pole. There they saw a giant hurricane in the form of an hexagon. The hurricane is more than twice as big as Earth. Goodbye, Cassini. 20 years after its launch in 2017, Cassini destroyed itself by crashing into Saturn's atmosphere. The explosion was planned by scientists so that the spacecraft didn't leave any trash in space. The mission has helped scientists understand how other planets form and change, and showed that life might be possible on Saturn's moons. Can you see Saturn's rings? This must be Cassini. Now we are going to read some facts about the Cassini mission. Cassini traveled almost 8 billion kilometers. It orbited Saturn 294 times and took 453,048 pictures. Wow! In 2011, Cassini discovered the largest storm in the solar system on Saturn. It lasted over 200 days and covered the entire planet. The mission cost over $3 billion. Now I want you to think, would you like to go into space? Why or why not? I would like to go into space, but at the same time, I would feel a little afraid because I think that the space is huge. It is infinite. And what if I can never go back to space, to Earth? So think about it, okay? Now let's go to the student's book, page 33. As you can see, here are some activities we are going to answer. So let's go to number 1. What is the text about? With a partner, write a list of keywords. We are going to make this activity, okay? So I already wrote 2 examples. I wrote planet Saturn because all of the text was about Saturn. And I also wrote Saturn moons. Now, can you remember the name of the space probe that traveled to Saturn? Remember to write it here, okay? Now here is activity number 2. Read the main ideas in the chart. Find these sections in the text and underline 3 details for each. Then complete the chart using the ideas below. So, here are the main ideas, and here are details 1, 2, and 3. I already wrote 1 detail from the first main idea, which is the Cassini mission to orbit Saturn. So, I wrote, it was launched in 1997. Here is these ideas, so I crossed it out. Then, for the second main idea, Saturn's moons, I wrote an example here from the detail 3. Titan, the largest moon, has lakes and seas. And I crossed it out. Remember that if you are not sure about what to write, you have to go back to the text and find details 1, 2, and 3 from each main idea, okay? Finally, this is activity number 3. Find and circle the words in the article. Then read and match. So we have 4 words here. Number 1, land. Number 2, atmosphere. Number 3, on board. And number 4, orbit. So as you can see, I already wrote letter B for land. Let's check it out. B. Return a plane or spaceship to the ground. Exactly, that is land. Now what about atmosphere? Is it A, on a boat, airplane, or spacecraft? C, circle around? Or D, the layer of gases around the planet? Yes, it is letter D. So you are going to write here letter D. Let's do it. Please continue with words 3 and 4 by yourself, okay? Remember to send your activities to my mail or to the platform.
Okay kids, so that's everything for this week. Thank you so much for watching the video, and don't forget to send your activities to my mail or through the platform. Bye!